Kate, do you agree with that standard that Jaden is talking about? I mean, those being deported, those being arrested, are put on planes, flown out of the country. Do they not have any legal recourse? Can they not go to court and try to prevent this happening? Can they not get some kind of an order?
Well, this is one of the executive orders that was announced on the first day in office, which talks about expedited removal, and it expanded it to the full extent of the law. So essentially, if someone's been in the country for less than 2 years, they don't really have rights to go before a judge or to have a hearing or even really to appeal. And if they've been here for longer than 2 years, and if they can prove that at the moment they're being processed to the satisfaction of the deportation officer, then they should have the right to call an attorney, go before a judge, seek some sort of defense against deportation. So this is one of the strongest pieces of advice that I and other lawyers and activists have been sharing in the Know Your Rights group of information, is for people who are undocumented who have been here for longer than 2 years. Now is the time to collect evidence of that time in the United States, save it in a safe folder, take pictures of it in your phone, and be able to prove at a moment's notice that you have that time in the United States so you can stop a rapid deportation.
And Kate, what about those who are being threatened with deportation, those who were born in the United States? You know, Trump has threatened what's known as birthright citizenship in the United States. That's something that's enshrined in the United States Constitution. Can he do that? And can he only do that if there's a change to the Constitution?
Well, that's what the federal judge said who reviewed the executive order. Very quickly, 22 states brought a lawsuit against the executive order because, of course, in the 14th Amendment, it says that anyone born in the United States is a U.S. citizen. The Supreme Court weighed in on that in the late 1800s. And so that was one of the first executive orders that was challenged in federal court. And the federal judge issued an injunction against the order and said that this was a blatantly unconstitutional policy. So that injunction is only in effect for a couple of weeks, and so it remains to be seen what will happen throughout the life of the litigation. But ultimately, I believe that this order will not change the Constitution. That would be a really shocking outcome.
Right. Kate, as Abel pointed out at the beginning of the program, these deportations and what we're seeing being done to migrants is not unique to the Trump administration. If we look at what the Biden administration did in fiscal 2024, it deported 271,000 migrants, and the Migration Policy Institute says Biden deported a total of 1.5 million migrants during his 4-year term. What are you seeing with your clients and their families, and how they're being affected?
What we're seeing now is a lot more interior enforcement. So Biden's high deportation numbers were primarily focused on the border and people apprehended crossing the border. And just this week, there have been, as you mentioned, targeted enforcement actions around the United States. I had a client picked up driving with his U.S. citizen wife and 3 U.S. citizen kids in the backseat of the car, left the wife alone with the children without formula for her baby. She cannot drive. And this person has no criminal record, has never interacted with law enforcement. They're also conducting these, yes, targeted operations where they go after someone who may already have a deportation order or an interaction with law enforcement. But really what we see ICE doing is expanding into doing collateral arrests. So if they're at a house or they pull someone over, they're really interested in who is standing around and what is that person's status. So it's a different type of focus, and it's going to be devastating. It's going to have significant impacts on families that are rooted in the United States, that have been here for decades, that contribute to our economy. And it's devastating for these kids. You know, I have to go and give these rights presentations to communities and schools and families. And I have single mothers ask me regularly, what happens if I get pulled over and my kids are in the back? And I have to tell them, if you don't have an agreement with someone, then they're going to go with the state. And so it's a very different feeling than deportations at the border for people who are apprehended crossing.
Kate, I've just got a little bit of time left. You know, as we just heard, immigration is a federal issue, but, you know, we have some local authorities who are taking the law into their own hands. We take the Texas governor, for instance, Greg Abbott. He's deployed a new tactical force, border force, That's in addition to the thousands of Texas National Guards who are at the border. I mean, can he do that?
Well, he has. I mean, he's had Operation Lone Star in place for years, has spent billions of Texan taxpayer dollars in what resulted in fewer than 1% of the apprehensions at the border. So a lot of Texas taxpayer money has gone toward border enforcement. We also have a law pending with the federal courts right now called Senate Bill 4, which creates a state-level crime and a state-level deportation system against migrants. So it's the state of Texas is very active in supporting the immigration enforcement efforts.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Thank you to all of you for being with us. That is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C.